The silence in the grand courtroom was shattered as the judge's gavel slammed onto polished wood, its echo ricocheting through marble columns. At that instant, all eyes locked onto Maya Alvarez, a resolute woman in her late 30s, whose career now balanced on the knife's edge. Sunlight fought through stained glass windows, painting fractured rainbows on anxious faces, attorneys, press, and a public hungry for justice. The government's counsel, a seasoned man in his 50s, cleared his throat, but the sound was lost under the weight of the moment. Maya's heart pounded, her jaw clenched in defiance, as the prosecution unleashed a damning piece of evidence. The gallery gasped. Outside, thunder rolled and rain battered the courthouse, as if nature itself mourned the country's crisis. The judge's eyes were steel, her voice unwavering, as she declared, "This court will hear all that must be revealed, no matter how damning." Maya whispered to herself, "I will not fall." The air was electric, betrayal, hope, and dread tangled in every breath. One false step would doom her, and the nation she fought for. In that first shattering moment, survival meant risking everything. As the judge's declaration reverberated through the tense courtroom, Maya Alvarez felt the weight of the nation pressing down upon her shoulders. She remembered the morning when this nightmare began, a summons arriving with the first light, a government messenger's grave expression. Now, every camera in the room was pointed at her, every eye hungry for a sign of guilt or innocence. Maya's attorney Daniel Briggs whispered, "We hold our ground, no matter what." Outside, the storm battered against the walls as if determined to breach them. Maya's breath slowed as she recalled the oath she had taken years ago, promising to defend the Constitution, never imagining it would lead her here. The prosecution's voice cut through her thoughts, cold and relentless. "You stand accused of betraying the very people you swore to protect." Maya looked up, defiance hardening her gaze. The world watched, silent and ruthless, as her fight for survival began beneath the fluorescent glare and stormlit shadows. Justice had never felt so distant or so necessary. Reporters crowded into the press box, their notebooks filling with whispered speculation and hurried sketches. Maya's mother, Elena, sat rigidly among the public, hands clasped, eyes red with worry. The air was thick with anxiety and anticipation. Every movement was scrutinized, every cough or shuffle magnified by tension. In the front row, a young girl held a hand-drawn sign that read, "Justice for Maya." The bailiff's voice echoed, "Order in the court." Maya's heart ached as she saw her family's pain, but she forced herself to sit tall. Daniel muttered, "They'll try to break you, but truth is our weapon." The prosecution arranged their papers with surgical precision. As thunder boomed again, the judge's eyes flicked toward Maya, searching for a crack in her armor. But Maya would not look away. Betrayal and hope warred behind every face in the gallery, but for Maya, there was no choice. This was her last stand, and she would make every second count. The prosecution rose, voice slicing through the air. The government trusted Maya Alvarez, yet secrets were leaked, endangering lives. The jury stiffened, some scribbling notes, others gripping their armrests. Daniel objected, "The defense demands proof, not rumor." The judge nodded, her gaze never leaving Maya. Maya's mind raced. She remembered her years of service, the sacrifices, the silent threats that always lurked beneath her work. Now, suspicion was a noose tightening around her neck. The government counsel brandished the blood-stained letter, a grim trophy. Maya kept her expression impassive, but rage simmered inside. Daniel whispered, "They want you to break, don't give them the satisfaction." The press leaned forward, sensing the story of a lifetime. Maya felt exposed, but her resolve was unbreakable. As the judge allowed the evidence, Maya vowed, "They will not write my ending." A single bolt of lightning illuminated the courthouse, casting monstrous shadows on the walls as the prosecution laid out their damning narrative. Evidence points to one conclusion: betrayal. Maya could feel every gaze piercing her, doubt and accusation thick in the air. Daniel leaned in, "Let them talk. Truth is on our side." The judge's gavel rested like an omen. Maya's pulse pounded. She saw her mother's face, a silent plea for strength. The prosecution finished, and the judge turned to Maya, voice soft but unyielding. "You may speak." The room fell silent, the storm's fury echoing the storm within her. Maya rose, voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I am not what they claim." In that moment, the fight was not just for herself, but for justice, and for everyone who still believed in it. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as Maya's defense team rose to challenge the government's narrative. Daniel Briggs spoke clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, evidence must be weighed, not wielded as a weapon." His voice resonated with calm urgency, cutting through the charged atmosphere. Maya sat rigidly, eyes scanning the jury, seeking a flicker of understanding. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving a heavy silence. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as defense attorneys laid out alibis and contradicted timelines. Witnesses took the stand, some reluctant, others resolute, each word probing deeper into the tangled web of accusations. The government's grip seemed to falter under scrutiny. Maya's gaze met Daniel's, a silent vow passing between them. Truth would not be buried. Yet shadows loomed. The battle for justice was only beginning, and every revelation risked unraveling more than just the case. The weight of countless unseen forces pressed in, and Maya steeled herself for what lay ahead. The defense called their first witness, a quiet intelligence analyst named Carl Jensen, a man in his late 40s with tired eyes and an unshaven face. His testimony peeled back layers of classified operations, hinting at conspiracies far beyond the courtroom walls. "MS. Alvarez was following orders," he said, voice cracking slightly. The prosecution's counsel leaned forward, eyes narrowed, ready to pounce on any slip. Maya's hands clenched beneath the table, every detail a lifeline. Outside, city noises crept through the courthouse's stone walls. A distant siren, a child's laughter, reminders of life beyond the trial. The analyst's words stirred murmurs. The jury shifted, unsure whether to see Maya as traitor or scapegoat. In this battle of shadows and truths, every fragment mattered. Maya's fight was no longer just legal, but deeply personal, an effort to reclaim her honor from the jaws of suspicion. Behind the courtroom walls, whispers grew louder. Alliances shifted, secrets traded in hushed corners. Maya's closest ally, Daniel, confided quietly during a recess. "This isn't just about you. There are powerful forces that want you silenced." Maya's expression hardened, knowing the stakes transcended her own fate. As she stepped outside, the crisp afternoon sun cast long shadows on the courthouse steps, mirroring the darkening complexity of her predicament. The press surged forward, flashes igniting the air as questions flew like bullets. "Are you guilty? What will you say to the nation?" Maya's silence spoke volumes, strength forged in adversity. Every step forward was a defiance against a system bent on destruction. As the trial marched on, loyalty and betrayal intertwined in a perilous dance. Maya realized survival meant navigating not just the courtroom, but a battlefield of trust and deception beyond sight. Back inside, the government's counsel introduced a new line of questioning, aimed at discrediting Maya's character. "How can we trust a woman who withheld information?" he demanded, voice sharp and accusing. Maya's eyes flashed with fury, but she held her ground. Daniel responded, "My client's loyalty is unwavering. The facts will show the truth." The courtroom air grew thick with tension, every juror hanging on each exchange. As testimony unfolded, past friendships unraveled, former colleagues unwilling to support Maya stepped back into shadows. The line between ally and adversary blurred. Maya felt the cold sting of isolation creeping in but refused to yield. The trial was no longer about proof alone. It was a crucible testing faith, integrity, and endurance. Each revelation peeled back layers of a life once simple, now shattered by politics and fear. As the day wore on, fatigue set in, but the courtroom storm showed no mercy. Maya's mother watched from the gallery, eyes swollen yet fierce with hope. Maya's voice rose steadily as she took the stand to testify. I have never betrayed this country. Every choice I made was for its safety. The room fell silent, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Her words hung heavy, filled with both defiance and vulnerability. Daniel offered a supportive glance, grounding her amid the swirling doubts. Outside, dusk cloaked the city, lights flickering like distant stars. The battle was far from over, but Maya's courage had ignited a spark, one that could expose hidden truths or consume her entirely. The fight for survival was now a fight for legacy, justice, and redemption, in a world where trust was fragile and hope fleeting. The courtroom fell into a tense hush as a surprise witness was called, Lena Pierce, a sharp-eyed intelligence officer in her early 30s, known for her unwavering integrity. Her entrance sent a ripple through the courtroom, eyes flickering with curiosity and suspicion. Lena took the stand, voice steady but laden with gravity. "I have information that changes everything," she declared. Maya's heart hammered as whispered speculation spread like wildfire. Lena's testimony peeled back layers of deception, revealing a hidden chain of command and orders that contradicted the prosecution's claims. The government counsel's face tightened, the first cracks showing in their armor. Maya's allies leaned in, hope flickering amidst the tension. Yet beneath the courtroom's polished veneer, a storm brewed, alliances shifted, and shadows deepened. Maya realized this witness might be the key to unlocking the truth or the final nail in her coffin. The courtroom's fate now hinged on Lena's every word. As Lena unveiled classified documents, a murmur swept through the courtroom. The papers exposed covert communications contradicting the prosecution's timeline. Orders were overridden at the highest levels, Lena testified, voice calm but firm. Maya's eyes searched the jury for signs of doubt, catching fleeting glances of surprise and uncertainty. The government counsel scrambled to maintain control, questioning Lena aggressively, but her responses were measured, revealing no hesitation. Maya felt the tide turning. Justice was a fragile thread being rewoven before their eyes. Outside, clouds darkened, mirroring the courtroom's volatile atmosphere. Daniel whispered encouragement, "Hold steady. This is our moment." The truth, long buried under political agendas, was finally surfacing. Yet every revelation deepened the labyrinth of secrets still waiting to be uncovered. Behind the scenes, tensions escalated. Daniel met Maya in a quiet hallway, his voice low but urgent. "There are leaks within our circle. We can't trust everyone." Maya's face hardened as she absorbed the betrayal's sting. The trial had become more than a courtroom drama. It was a chessboard of hidden agendas. She knew that exposure risked everything, including her life. As they spoke, footsteps echoed ominously nearby. Maya glanced around, suspicion prickling her skin. Trust was a currency rarer than gold. The courtroom's walls seemed to close in, shadows lengthening with every passing hour. Yet Maya's resolve only strengthened. If the truth was a weapon, she was ready to wield it, even if it meant confronting ghosts from her own past. The legal battle was now entwined with a fight for survival against invisible enemies lurking in plain sight. The prosecution's counterattack was swift and ruthless. They presented a whistleblower, Marcus Lang, a former colleague of Maya's with a bitter expression and a history of clashes. "I witnessed breaches of protocol," Marcus declared, voice sharp and accusatory. The jury's expressions hardened, some nodding. Maya's breath caught, memories of tense confrontations flashing through her mind. Daniel objected vehemently. "This is hearsay driven by personal vendettas." The judge intervened, cautioning both sides. Maya's eyes locked with Marcus's across the room. A silent battle of wills. The courtroom became a crucible, forging truths and lies alike. Every accusation chipped away at Maya's defense, yet she refused to buckle. The fight was far from over. Every moment demanded courage and clarity amid mounting pressure and personal sacrifice. As the day's proceedings drew to a close, Maya stood again, voice steady though her heart raced. "I have served with honor and integrity," she said firmly, eyes scanning the jury one last time. The courtroom was heavy with anticipation, breaths held collectively. Outside, twilight deepened, shadows creeping along courthouse walls. The government council's final words echoed, "The truth will prevail." But for Maya, the battle was far from decided. She felt the weight of history pressing down, the eyes of a nation watching. This trial was not just about verdicts, but about what kind of future they would build. Maya's fight had become a symbol of resistance, a testament to the price of truth in a world rife with betrayal. The stage was set for a reckoning, and the next chapter promised to shake foundations and redefine justice itself. The courtroom atmosphere shifted palpably as the prosecution unveiled a hidden piece of evidence, a confidential memo implicating Maya in unauthorized surveillance. The judge's gavel echoed sharply, demanding order. Maya's eyes narrowed as the government counsel spoke with cold precision. "This document exposes a breach of trust, concealed from this court until now." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he stood firm. Maya's mind raced, recalling the countless hours spent ensuring national security, walking a fine line between protection and overreach. The jury absorbed the shock silently, faces a mix of disbelief and judgment. Outside, clouds gathered, darkening the day's fading light. Maya felt the weight of every accusation pressing down, the fragile threads of her defense beginning to fray. Yet beneath it all, a steely resolve burned. No matter the cost, she would face this storm head-on. As the prosecution pressed their advantage, Maya's defense called an unexpected expert witness, Dr. Samuel Green, a cybersecurity analyst in his early 50s with calm authority. He dismantled the prosecution's claims, revealing how the memo was manipulated to distort facts. "This evidence is not what it appears," he explained patiently. "It has been altered to mislead." The courtroom murmured, jurors leaning in with renewed curiosity. Maya's gaze locked with Daniel's. Hope flickered amidst the tension. The government counsel's face tightened, his usual confidence shaken. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the courthouse windows, echoing the chaos within. Dr. Green's testimony planted seeds of doubt, but the battle was far from over. Maya understood this fight was a war of perception as much as proof, with every word tipping the scales between justice and ruin. In a quiet corridor, Daniel confided in Maya, voice low and urgent. "There's a mole feeding information to the prosecution. We must be cautious." Maya's eyes flashed with determination. Betrayal was a poison that ran deeper than she feared. They knew the courtroom was just one front in a larger battle, a network of shadows working against them. Maya's thoughts flicked to her closest allies and former friends. Who could be trusted? The courthouse's cold stone walls seemed to close in, the weight of unseen enemies pressing down. Yet Maya refused to surrender to fear. Each step forward was a defiance of those who sought to destroy her. Outside, rain began to fall again, a steady patter against the stone, a rhythmic reminder of time running out. This was no longer just a trial. It was a fight for survival in every sense. The prosecution called their final witness, a former insider named Rachel Monroe, mid-30s, sharp-eyed and composed, but carrying the weight of secrets. Her testimony was a carefully crafted blow. "I witnessed violations of protocol," she said quietly, implicating Maya in decisions made under duress. Maya's heart pounded as each word landed with devastating clarity. Daniel objected, but the judge allowed the testimony, sensing the fragility of the case. The courtroom held its breath, jurors exchanging looks of doubt and disbelief. Maya's resolve wavered only momentarily. She knew the truth was complicated, layered with impossible choices made in impossible times. Outside, dusk settled, casting long shadows across the cityscape. The trial's climax loomed. Justice scales balanced precariously between redemption and ruin. The final day of testimony drew to a close with Maya taking the stand once more. Her voice was steady, though every word carried the weight of her ordeal. "I acted to protect my country, even when the cost was personal." Her gaze swept the jury, searching for understanding, for a glimpse of hope. The judge nodded solemnly, signaling the gravity of the moment. Outside, twilight deepened, shadows lengthening along courthouse steps. The prosecution's closing arguments loomed ahead, a last volley in a war fought in whispered secrets and glaring headlines. Maya's fight was no longer hers alone. It had become a symbol of resilience in a fractured nation. As she sat down, a quiet determination settled over the room. The verdict would shape more than her fate, it would echo through history. The courtroom grew heavy with anticipation as closing arguments began. Daniel Briggs rose, voice steady and resolute. "This trial is about truth, not spectacle." Maya Alvarez stood at the crossroads of duty and sacrifice. She made impossible choices, yet never betrayed the nation's core values. His words echoed through the chamber, met with attentive silence. Maya's eyes searched the jury, each face a question she longed to answer. Outside, the late afternoon sun filtered through stained glass, casting fractured colors onto the polished floor. The government counsel followed, delivering a sharp rebuttal, painting Maya as reckless and deceitful. The courtroom became a battlefield of conviction, each side fighting to seize the narrative. Maya's resolve steeled. This was her moment, not just for herself but for all who trusted her. Justice teetered on the edge of a gavel strike, destiny poised to be decided. The prosecution's closing argument cut through the stillness, voice sharp and accusing. "We entrust our protectors with the highest standards. When those are broken, the foundation of trust crumbles." He paced slowly, eyes fixed on the jury. Maya Alvarez's actions endangered lives and undermined faith in our institutions. The gallery murmured, the weight of his words sinking deep. Maya sat quietly, her fingers intertwined, recalling every sacrifice and sleepless night. The courtroom was a crucible where hope and doubt clashed violently. Outside, the city's hum faded as twilight deepened. The battle for truth had stripped away illusions, exposing raw wounds and fragile loyalties. Now, the verdict would echo beyond these walls, deciding not just Maya's fate, but the fragile balance between security and justice in a divided nation. The jury filed out, leaving a charged silence in their wake. Maya felt every heartbeat, every second stretching taut with uncertainty. Daniel whispered, "Whatever happens, you fought with honor." Her mind raced through memories of the trial, the faces, the revelations, the betrayals. Outside, the courthouse steps were slick with rain from a sudden evening storm. Reporters gathered, their questions sharp and relentless. Maya's mother waited nearby, her presence a fragile anchor. Inside, the judge retreated to chambers, preparing the verdict that would seal Maya's fate. The courtroom seemed suspended in time, a fragile bubble of hope and dread. For Maya, the fight was far from over. Whether victory or defeat, the outcome would redefine her life and the very meaning of justice. The jury returned, faces solemn and unreadable. The foreperson rose, voice steady but heavy. "We find the defendant." Maya's breath caught, the courtroom hanging on a razor's edge. Time seemed to dilate as the words stretched out, each syllable a thunderclap in her chest. "Not guilty." A gasp rippled, relief and disbelief mingling. Daniel smiled faintly, eyes wet with emotion. Maya's knees weakened, but she held firm, the weight of survival settling like cold fire in her bones. Outside, the storm broke, rain washing over the city streets, cleansing and relentless. Yet victory felt bittersweet. The scars of the trial would linger, the fractures in trust and truth still raw. The courtroom slowly emptied, leaving Maya with the heavy cost of justice earned, and a future uncertain yet fiercely claimed. As the courtroom emptied, Maya stood at the center, the weight of what was lost and won pressing equally. Daniel approached, voice low. "This isn't the end. The fight for truth goes beyond these walls." Maya nodded, her gaze distant but resolute. The nation watched, divided yet hopeful. The courthouse doors swung open to a rain-washed night, the city lights shimmering like distant stars. Maya's journey was far from over. The trial had changed her, shaped her into a symbol of resilience in a fractured world. The echoes of this moment would ripple outward, inspiring some, warning others. And as the final door closed behind her, Maya stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, unwavering in her resolve to protect justice at all costs. The courtroom had emptied, but Maya's battle was far from over. Late that night, in a dimly lit conference room, Maya and Daniel faced their closest allies. Tension thickened the stale air. "The verdict was a victory," Daniel said quietly. "But enemies remain. The fight moves beyond the courtroom." Maya's gaze hardened, her jaw clenched with resolve. Whispers of retaliation and political sabotage shadowed their plans. Every ally was a potential target, every move watched. The rain outside tapped relentlessly against the window pane, matching the rhythm of their anxious hearts. Maya's voice broke the silence. "We must expose the deeper conspiracy before it consumes us all." Their conversation was a delicate dance of strategy and trust, knowing the stakes had grown exponentially. Justice had been served, but survival demanded vigilance beyond the law. Days later, Maya walked through a city park at dusk, the weight of her victory mingling with the burden of unresolved threats. Daniel's words echoed in her mind. "We're being watched, our every move." The autumn leaves rustled beneath her feet, a whisper of fragility amid looming danger. She paused beneath a gnarled oak, recalling faces from the trial, the betrayers, the allies, the uncertain. In the distance, police sirens wailed, a reminder that justice was often fragile and fleeting. Maya's fingers brushed a worn photo in her pocket, a symbol of the life she fought to protect. She breathed deeply, steeling herself against the unknown. The city's glow flickered in twilight, a fragile beacon of hope. The battle for truth was now a test of endurance, courage, and trust in a world shadowed by secrets. Inside a secure safe house, Maya reviewed encrypted files with Daniel and a trusted tech expert, the glow of multiple screens illuminating their faces. "We've uncovered evidence of a coordinated smear campaign," the expert said, voice low and urgent. Maya's eyes narrowed as documents revealed shadowy figures manipulating public perception. The stakes were now global, reaching beyond the courtroom's confines. Maya's mind raced through the implications: political puppetry, broken loyalties, a nation's fragile trust at risk. Yet amid the darkness, a spark of clarity emerged. "We expose them," Maya declared, "before they silence us all." The team worked in tense silence, the weight of unseen enemies pressing in. Each keystroke was a battle, every data point a clue in a vast, dangerous game. Survival had become a war fought in shadows and whispers. A sudden knock startled the team as a courier delivered a sealed envelope, an anonymous tip hinting at the location of a key informant. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal, reading words that could shift the entire balance of power. "This may be our last chance," Daniel whispered. The team prepared to move swiftly, aware that danger lurked at every turn. Outside, the city hummed obliviously, unaware of the fragile threads weaving a high-stakes game of trust and betrayal. Maya's resolve hardened. This was a fight for more than personal vindication. It was a fight for the truth's survival against those determined to bury it. Every moment mattered, every decision carried the weight of countless lives. The next move could be their salvation, or their undoing. The team gathered in a shadowed alley behind the city's courthouse, the night alive with distant sirens and flickering street lamps. Maya's voice was steady but urgent. "We expose the truth tonight, no matter the cost." Faces were grim, eyes reflecting years of struggle and sacrifice. As they moved into the darkness, every step was a defiant stand against unseen enemies. The city seemed to hold its breath, the fragile line between justice and chaos thinning. Maya's heart pounded with a fierce determination, a resolve forged in the fires of betrayal and hope. This was the crucible where loyalty would be tested and futures decided. The fight was no longer legal but elemental, a raw struggle for survival, truth, and the fragile promise of a better tomorrow. The night was thick with tension as Maya and her team gathered in a secluded warehouse on the city's edge. Outside, rain hammered the metal roof, echoing the storm within their hearts. Maya's voice broke the silence, steady but edged with urgency. Tonight, we reveal the truth that they buried. Faces were lit by flickering monitors and faint streetlights, filtering through grimy windows. The team prepared for the final act of their long, perilous journey, exposing the shadowy forces manipulating the nation's fate. Every second felt charged with fragile hope and lurking danger. Maya's eyes locked on each ally, their determination mirroring her own. This was more than a fight for justice. It was a battle to reclaim the soul of a fractured nation. Outside, thunder rumbled as the city braced for the storm that truth would bring. As encrypted files began to upload to public networks, Maya's hands trembled only slightly, her resolve unwavering. "This is the moment," she said quietly. Outside, newsrooms flickered to life, social media exploded, and the nation's fragile facade began to crack. The team watched in tense silence as hidden truths spilled into the light, implicating powerful figures once thought untouchable. The weight of years of lies lifted, replaced by a brittle hope for reform. Maya's heart ached with the cost of sacrifice, yet she knew the fight had changed everything. The shadows that clung to the corridors of power were now exposed, but the fallout was unpredictable. Justice had been kindled, but the road ahead was uncertain. As the first rays of dawn broke, Maya whispered, "Let the reckoning begin." The nation awoke to a storm of revelations. Headlines screamed of corruption and cover-ups. Voices rose in protest and demand for change. Maya's image flashed across every screen, a symbol of resistance and resilience. Yet beneath the cheers, shadows stirred. Powerful enemies regrouped, vowing retribution. Maya stood before a crowd of supporters, her voice steady despite exhaustion. "Truth is the foundation of justice. We will rebuild together." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of hope swelling amid uncertainty. Behind the scenes, Daniel and Maya shared a quiet glance, aware that victory was only the beginning. The fight had exposed fractures deep within the system, and healing would require courage from all. The final battle for the nation's soul had just begun. In a quiet moment away from the spotlight, Maya and Daniel reflected on the journey's cost. "We've won the battle," Daniel said softly, "but the war for justice never ends." Maya nodded, her gaze distant yet resolute. They spoke of lost allies, fractured trust, and the fragile hope now entrusted to them. The courtroom drama had faded, but the echoes lingered, reminders of sacrifice and vigilance. Maya's voice held a quiet vow, "I will keep fighting, for truth for those who cannot." The city lights twinkled below as night deepened, the vastness of the struggle both humbling and empowering. In this stillness, Maya found strength, ready to face whatever future awaited, knowing her fight was far from over. The final moments were marked by a silence heavier than any gavel's strike. Maya stood alone in the empty courtroom, her silhouette framed by fading sunlight through tall windows. She whispered, "Justice is never final. It is a promise we must renew every day." The echo of her words lingered, a haunting testament to the journey's cost and the battles still ahead. As the doors closed behind her, the courtroom fell into quiet stillness, an empty stage for a story unfinished. Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the fragile hope carried within. Maya stepped into the shadows, ready to face the uncertain dawn. The story's last breath was a vow, a whispered call to all who would carry the torch of truth forward, undaunted and unyielding.